Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome on this beautiful Wednesday, I think, um, morning for me here in San Diego. I would love for Laura and Alex to join me up on stage. Today we are going to today's a day of sharing knowledge. Actually, that's what it is. This is an informal brain dump of what we know, what we have learned from the past year, and we want to share that knowledge with you. So I am Yinka. I am the events producer here at Remo, and then I have with me Alex and Laura, two of my favorite people that I've gotten to know this past year when we all had to learn about virtuals and what the heck is it even. Laura has been an awesome floor plan designer, and I use her quite a lot. And then Alex and I are kind of on the same level. We like to produce events, virtual events, and we bounce off ideas and tools off of each other all the time. And this is actually why we were here. We're talking and we were like, why don't we just have a chat with all three of us? So here we are. This is meant to be very, very interactive. And so if you have any questions for any of us as we're going through and we're having conversations, please feel free to either put it in the chat, which is to the right of your screen, or you can put it in the Q&A and we will make sure to get to those questions. If you have something that's burning or something that we said that you want to either get a little bit more information or clarification, and you want to come up and join us on stage and ask that question, please let me know in the chat and I will bring you up with us and we can have a conversation. All right, is everyone ready to get some knowledge, to impart some knowledge as well? I'm gonna start with Miss Laura. So if you could please just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, thanks for inviting me here, Yinka. This is exciting. I'm excited to learn from both of you too. I think the nice thing is that we each kind of complement each other. I come wearing two hats. I like to say my grown-up job is that I'm a consultant for nonprofits in the long-term planning, the 3 to 5 years, the capital campaigns, the feasibility, how to get your whole fundraising program right, of which events is a piece. So these other two do the actual implementation and creation of events, but I can help with the advising and the back thought behind that and the on-ramp and the off-ramp for those. And then I've also, as Yinka mentioned, during this last year, as we've all been pivoting and finding out new things about ourselves, I have started a small boutique that creates floor plans for Remo. So if you want your event to look like a gala, it can look like a gala. If you want it to look like an outdoor festival, it looks like an outdoor festival. And we'll talk more to this, but just how the feel of an event, and if people feel like they want to be there, a lot of that on a virtual event is wrapped up in the visuals and the difference that I've seen it make there. So that's it.
And I will plug that the floor plan that everyone entered in, that's a Laura design. All right, Alex, onto you. Get a little intro on yourself.
All right, let me stand up so I can do my little cheesy intro here. I am Alex. I am my official title is founder, CEO, and lunch break enforcer at Lunchpool. I also like to help my clients or help our clients raise lunch money. Money for their causes, money to power the mission that really is, I think, some of the best work available, some of the best things going on in America, globally. There are so many causes that need support. And over the last year, as Yinka called out, being able to support nonprofits specifically, we work across a lot of different markets and industries. Nonprofits are always my favorite ones to do because what we do is, besides just having lunch, because we do love lunch, we bring together all the coolest technology from around the world, make it a seamless experience. So that, if you're an event host, if you're one of our clients, you can give that to your audience to engage them thrill them and ultimately get their support for your cause. So that's me. My background is in marketing, analytics, photoshopping, random pictures. I don't know, memes.
Throwing gifts in the chat. You're
Yeah.
really good at that.
I may need somebody to be the meme, the chat memer, and Jiffer, but I'll try to throw in a few as we go. So if I'm looking off to the side, that's what's happening.
I think you are. So let's get started. And I actually want to get started with maybe a super obvious question. With live events coming back, why are we even concerned about virtual fundraisers? What's the point?
Ooh, can I start on that one?
Please.
Yes.
So I was working on a contract a year and a half ago, back last March at a university with a really incredible person who, when everything shifted and all of our live programming took off, they came to me and they said, Laura, go find us solutions. How do we make this work in this new world? And he didn't stop there. He said, I don't want you to just find a stopgap. Go find out why it's better. And so that's how I started my whole path on virtual events. And I love that lens. And we started to realize, and I looked backwards too, and I said, okay, I've worked with nonprofits before where they said, we wish we could connect our donors with the program work that we are doing. And when you've got a virtual event, you're bringing in people from all over the world. If you're working in international development, suddenly you can bring all of your donors in and they can participate in turning on that well that they funded. And it feels like a real event. I worked with one client who a lot of their work happens in clean labs, that they've never been able to show their donors what they were doing because it's a huge deal to bring people into clean labs. There's, IP that's involved, there's cleanliness involved, and now they can take somebody in there virtually and show them and make an event out of being involved in this program work. So there are times I think if we take that lens, even as the world shifts, there are so many use cases where meeting virtually makes more sense and makes a richer event than you would be able to have otherwise.
Thank you for that. Alex, do you have anything to add? Are you muted?
Mistake. I was looking for GIFs around hybrids. I'll apologize. So my team, if you're there, you know how to find GIFs. Send me them, and I'll put them up. No, I think that it's really important to understand how in-person events are always, that's my preference, right? We started there, and when all this stuff had come out, luckily Lunchpool had in January of 2020, pre-pandemic, we did a virtual lunch break just for professional networking. We started in St. Petersburg, Florida, which, if you know that area, Tampa Bay is kind of gridlocked. You have Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, and if you're a fundraiser or if you're a nonprofit in Tampa, you're not going to get anybody from St. Pete because there are very narrow bridges that get stuck every day. So we called it Break Tampa Bay. We had a bunch of people, about 150 people show up in the Remo experience, and Remo was a baby. I love how far the platform's come since those days. And it's what I found was we were getting people away from their desk for networking, and it was hard. There was a lot of friction. But being in the browser, we were meeting people where they were, right? Even locally and even pre-pandemic, people were like, I found a ton of value. I met someone that is literally a mile away that I never would have met otherwise. And now we're doing business together. So translating that professional networking into the nonprofit, there's a ton of value. Your donors may want to support you. And as you probably know, experience is everything, right? They already want to support. We've raised literally, I don't have the figure. I probably should have been a good presenter and brought an actual number, but I think it was like $7 million last year for clients. And I say for clients very loosely because we didn't raise that, right? Their development directors did, their executive director did. Like, they had the audience, and that's the only way that they would have raised those funds. But without shifting to virtual, they probably wouldn't have, because they're not on everybody's radar as everybody's freaking out, And so there's a lot of noise, and you have to do virtual right. And that's really, what we focused our attention on over the last year. And we're going to share if there's one takeaway today, it'll be how to learn from us three on just the war stories and how you can translate that into action and fundraising.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one of the best things about this virtual space and doing a virtual fundraiser is how broad your audience is. And I think a lot of things that people learned last year was that people want to give to causes that are near and dear to them. And when you do a virtual space, when you do a virtual event or a virtual fundraiser, you get closer to those people that want to be your donors. So I agree with everything both of you have said. So Laura, if I am a nonprofit that has only done live events, what are some of the things that I should be thinking of? What should my team be thinking of as we're thinking of either transitioning into that virtual space or staying and fundraising in the virtual space?
So I think you really, always take a step back before saying, what platform am I going to use or how much money are we going to raise? Step back and look at the people who are your biggest fans and your donors. In the fundraising world, we know that for most organizations, and I'm sure there's a representation of lots of different types of organizations here, but your major donors are where most of the money comes from. So I like to step back and look at my most important volunteers, usually board members, but there are others, and my major donors, and take a look at where they're going and what they want to be doing and the type of experience that they need to feel close to you. And then evaluate, is that still in the virtual space? Did we decide we liked this convenience and we liked being able to connect further? Or for now, do they need that live reconnect and make that decision there? If you base it around the people that are most important to you, it's going to become a lot clearer. You're also going to want to look and see, for some organizations, they did great fundraising during this past year and they've had, zero hiccups, and some of their coffers are pretty low. So you're going to need to match your budget with it too and see what you're capable of doing. And maybe something that's a smaller budget virtual event just to keep things going is what you need. So balancing those factors there.
Agreed. Alex, please feel free to chime in anytime you want, even if I direct a question just to Laura. Laura, you spoke about, you kind of touched on budget just a tiny little bit, which brings me into my next question for everyone, because as we know, a lot of nonprofits, for their budgets, they rely on sponsorships. Sponsorships for the food, for the dining tables, for the linens, for all of that, right? And so when that all went away and we were not having live events and those sponsors were not giving those dollars to teams, and a lot of nonprofits felt like their budget was gone. I remember having to speak to some of my clients and trying to think of ways to engage and to bring in the sponsor, or to re-engage the sponsor, or to find new sponsors. So what are some of the ways that nonprofits can keep their sponsors when they have a virtual fundraising event?
Yeah, I can kind of take that one. Well, and I know Laura has some good insights here because she's part of the reason that I'll go into. When we first found Remo specifically, we're platform agnostic. We do a ton of events here in this platform, Remo. But when we first found Remo, we had been doing some trials on Zoom, the app that we were building. We were like, okay, let's do virtual lunches. And, boom, you're in a Zoom call. Zoom was boring back then. No offense, Zoom, if you watch this, but we call it the Z word. We use it sometimes, but man. But finding Remo, we were actually able to go from a pre-revenue startup that had a lot of potential, which means no revenue, to $1,000 in sponsorships. And that was not even having a great, I have a great vision, but not having, a life-changing mission for some people, like the American Red Cross and Heart Association and things like that. So finding sponsors was easy because it's the platform, right? And now technology can't come first, but you need to think about your problem. And I found Remo, and you could label the tables. It was something as simple as that. Back then, they didn't have the sponsor banners, which I'm pretty sure Laura will go into, and I'll let you do that, or hopefully you'll do that. I'll cue you up for that. But we sold the table names for $250 a piece because, again, these people have the budgets for sponsoring things. You just have to give them a reason to use that budget. And so the purpose of the budget is get our name out there. And so they want to see attendees, which we'll talk about in a little bit, getting people there. That's important. But then they also want to see, their name. And so it just came down to last year, you can't really, in a robust fashion in most popular platforms, showcase your sponsors well. It's usually like a video clip quickly, occasionally. But having a networking experience like you saw when you first came in that has a long-lasting presence and a clickable presence that can take them somewhere, that's what made all the difference in our events last year. Sorry, Laura, that was a long cue up.
No, I'm just going to add on to that. I'm going to say too, start with your own attitude. Alex said, sponsors have money that they need to spend, they want to spend. They're having a hard time getting in front of people too. You offer that avenue in virtual events. So I like to tell my clients often, fundraising or sponsor seeking, put away your tin cup, just throw it in the backyard. You are not begging. You are offering them a chance that they don't have otherwise. So what you need to do to make that offer look really good, either you need to show that you've got some experience doing some virtual events. And if you don't have any, show that you're working with professionals who do, that you're getting advice from the right people so that they can trust that their name is going to be shown and presented well. And then show them how this is different. Show them how you're going to be different from everyone else. And that's one of the main reasons that I started creating floor plans, because I wanted spaces where I could bring people and we could feel like we were in a place, and I could show sponsors, this is what it's going to be like, and people wanted to stay. So show them how it's different. And you can't just tell them, they need proof. Most of them can't visualize how it can be different than Zoom. So send them images, bring them into a space and say, this is what I'm offering you. And again, throw away that tin cup. You are offering them something that they have not had the opportunity to do.
Yeah,
and reach out. You haven't reached.
And that's the perfect point. I'll just jump in and say, the old school, and not everybody did this, but the old school method of that tin cupping, is over. Like, you do not do that if you're doing that, because I support the Salvation Army, but I will go out of my way to avoid Santa Claus. And I don't know what it is. It's just, but if Santa Claus was to throw a really cool party that I could go to and donate money in front of my friends, not that I could, not me particularly, because I'm, my wife doesn't let me have any money, but like, that is what I've seen in our events, where we did a Muse Knoxville event, right? And it was the amazing networking. This was right at the beginning of the pandemic. So Muse Knoxville is a children's museum, an activity center. They really do a great, very inclusive service for the community, giving kids an opportunity to play and learn experientially. And they have scholarships for people that are not that privileged in the community. So it's awesome what they do. And they were scared. They were like, this fundraiser that we have is how we sustain operations for the rest of the year. And it's a one-time thing, and we've pushed it back. We're going to have to push it back again. Like, we don't know what we're going to do. We furloughed people. And I was like, not on my watch. And so, you can't have that mentality of, here's the coin, because in their event, we put together a cool experience, and you could see people's excitement jumping around from table to table. They were like, this is cool. Like, there's Greg's over at that table. We got to go talk to him, and that agency to move around is something that you can't get, or you couldn't get anywhere else. There's a few other platforms, but there's a magic about this one from what we've seen. Remo does it well. And so, and this is not an advertisement for Remo. It's just, like we've done 300 events in Remo, so I am a little bit of a fanboy, but we like it a little bit. But the cool thing about that event was it's when you start seeing people donate, and it's a little bit of a flex, right? I mean, these are people that have very high net worths usually if it's if you brought in your best developed donors. But to see an anonymous donation for $15,000, that's magical. It's like, man, that there's an altruist out there. But even to see the one like the Barnes family just donated $5,000 and put that in the chat, put that on screen, like highlight that, because that makes them feel good and it adds to the overall experience. Herd behavior is real when that starts happening. Even if you're not donating, you want to. Like, I'd be like, man, I've got $6. I'm throwing down. Like, put my name up on the screen.
I love it when doing good becomes contagious.
Exactly.
We'll actually get to some of those tools because there are some platforms that do allow you to either have that the fundraising bar and do the shout outs to those big donors, but we'll get there. Before I really delve in deep, I want us to debate a little bit. Alex mentioned a little tiny bit, but let's debate. Live streaming, 100% live, or pre-recorded content?
I'll jump in on that one briefly. I'll say my whole mission in life is to stop people, to shake people and say, stop recording content. Stop saying the word content. Like the world is over commercialized and we don't trust content anymore. And we don't, people haven't been a good steward of our time. Right.
So I'm interrupting you. Why do you say you don't trust content anymore?
Because what happens on the internet is you're going through your Facebook feed and you see something that promises you value, right? And it's like, hey, you have this problem because we've targeted you in some way, and click it, and then it's like, we'll give you this value that you seek, and you go there, and then it's like, oh, now you have to go and download our white paper, and then oh, now you have to go join our community, and then finally they're like, oh, it's going to cost $5,000 to actually get the value. You'll be talking to me, and so the value of person-to-person connection is obvious, and being able to provide that to people is extremely valuable. A lot more valuable than playing a even very well produced, hour-long video. Like we've done some events with those, and yes, they can be entertaining, but the best events that we've done are hybrid, not in the sense of in-person and virtual, but in the sense of like, here's a pre-recorded clip. Now let's go back to the live presenter. Here's another one, like that kind of thing. Now, my team loves managing those because they're really good at it, but it can be a little bit of a technical challenge, but that is the experience from what we've seen.
Laura?
I would absolutely echo what Alex is saying. If anytime that you can do it live, that you've got the technical capabilities or, the comfort level to do it live, do it live. I mean, even before this past year, and people were craving connection and craving engagement, and it feels empty and hollow with recorded content. People want to know there's a real person responding on the other side. And for donors, no matter what people say, giving is an emotional response. And if they don't feel connected to you and feel connected to your cause, you're losing out. So especially in this type of work, you have to have those connections and engagement. So if you can push and get most of it live, or like Alex was saying, that mix where maybe you are presenting some pre-recorded content, but there's somebody coming and saying, here's this choir performing, and it had to be pre-recorded to get all the people together and synced, but then people give feedback. There's a live component to it for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I did a fundraiser where it was 100% pre-recorded, and it just, well, first, yeah, Alex, I know.
Like, oh, why? No, we do them too. Don't
of course, and it's what the client wants, it's what the organization wants. But it really did, that connection that Laura just spoke about. You really did lose it, and it was, they made their goal, which was great, but I knew that it could have been doubled if we really had what Alex, just a little bit of that live element to it. You really really do see that. And it's easier for people to donate when there's someone in front of their face saying, please donate, please give. Or if you have a live performer that is singing the piano live and asking people for song choices, and that could be a donation. I'm going into all of my questions, but
I was just going to add high level too, Yinka. It's more, this is what I want one of our takeaways to be here. The event itself is important, and the dollars raised at the event are important, but overall in fundraising, sometimes events and the dollars raised, it kind of ends up as a wash by what it costs to produce, at least live events, what it costs to produce an event, and then what you make. So what you want to remember too is the overall engagement and awareness you're creating. So sure, you can deliver pre-recorded content. You might get the dollars that you wanted for that, but your bigger strategy is you want that engagement with your donors. You want them to feel connected. If you're going to invest in the event anyway, do it right and keep them connected and build a relationship with them that's going to keep growing over time.
That is the best point, I'll say. If you guys were getting your drink, or if that didn't soak in, remember that, because an event is a moment in time, whether it be an hour, 2 hours, whatever. That's gone. That's fleeting. But that connection that you can make with your audience, that's the opportunity. That's the reason that you have events, because if you can create that connection right there, or strengthen it, I can't talk, then that's going to be, not just $1,000 donation or $15,000 donation. That could be a long lasting monthly donation, which you need. And so that's a beautiful point, Laura. And I think that is the takeaway is you need to think about your strategy, right? We have a strategy call with every client, right at the kickoff, where we say, what is your goal? And sometimes it's not a fundraising goal. For fundraisers it is, obviously, but for all nonprofits, sometimes it's just, we want to showcase our new initiative. We did a United Way initiative where it was here's our House Navigator program. Cool. We will do that. What challenges do you see? Because there's always going to be challenges. So think about those ahead of time. And then, what is your plan? And then we'll say, that's a good plan. That part of it's not. If they're, to Yinka's point, pre-recorded video the whole time, we're you might want to adjust that plan a little bit. But then it's okay, and now what specifically is the metric? Because, Laura has a good point. It costs money. Pre-recorded video, if you do it well, is going to cost some money. So if anything, don't just create it for that moment in time event. Create something or use something that you already have that is going to build the most value, so that you're not scrambling to raise $100,000 that you already have spent. The video production company would love that, I'm sure, but they'd love it more if you get more mileage out of the materials you produce. So long-winded way to agree with you, Laura, but I think it's a point that need be stressed. You got to think about, how do you build that connection? How do you build that relationship, is what you said. And it's super important. We got 2 Yinkas. Whoa.
We do. It happens. I'm on this platform so much, it always multiplies me.
I like it. Multiplicity. Yeah.
2 of me. Oh, it's better than 1.
I agree. Can you bring a 3rd one on? That's
I know, right?
No, 3 will be way too much. What happened? It'll go away. So thank you both for that, actually. And that leads me to my next one. I think a lot of times, I have a sweet spot for nonprofits. I think everyone here does. And so working with nonprofits in the live event space, I realize that usually they're understaffed. And they're stretched very thin. And that's really hard to have, if it's one person that's doing all the events for a nonprofit, that's really hard. And so I think in that virtual space, when, first of all, you had to learn what that virtual space even means and how to have a virtual event, I think a lot of nonprofits just immediately said, well, let's just record. If you record it, we record it and we can just play it. So for those that are here that don't just want to have a ton of pre-recorded content, what are some of the tools out there that nonprofits can use to really have a really successful virtual fundraiser?
I love showing things. So show and tell was my favorite part of school.
Show away.
And so, yeah, you could probably imagine. I was, if I had a magic trick that I could take to school, that was my favorite day of the year. And so, what tools can you use? It's not just about platform; it's the experiential elements. And it's a time right now when we talked about this, and hopefully I'm not stealing the thunder from a later question, but it's hard to get people out, right? It's people have so much going on. They're trying to adjust to getting back to the real world and not sure if they're even supposed to, and all the different things. And so attendance can be challenging. But if you can pull in, I'll show you some of these experiential elements, then you're going to have people raving. But that, again, that's after the fact. You have to, I think, Laura, you mentioned it earlier, you have to show them that what you're going to do or what you've done in the past. You can't just, say, hey, we're doing a virtual event. No, if people hear virtual event, they sometimes have PTSD because they've been in 7,000 meetings over the last year. You have to say, we're having an experience. You have no idea about what you're in for. We're going to do a virtual photo booth. I should have created one for this. We're going to do, all these things. So let me show you. So one you saw already, which is, I love it. And actually, this is not a pitch either. If I had an affiliate link, I'd put it in there. But Minicam, like if you're in the Remo community, it's one of the boards I'm in. They know that I love Minicam. So check this. And this is not sponsored by Minicam, but check this out. So you saw this, and you can change it on the fly, like heck geek, and then boom, there it is. And so, that this platform allows me to do the GIFs that you saw me do earlier. It's just it's like a little mini production studio. So it has a little bit of a lift, right? But learning the tools like that as you're, raising or as you're putting together these events to raise critical funds, they can make all the difference. And you can always hire Yinka or my company to help you put that together if it's too much. But Yinka, if it's okay, because I want to hear from Laura too. So, but I'd like to show you some of the different experiential elements that we've been able to do in a quick video. And if feel free to pull the little Bo Peep thing, whatever they call that, the pull me off the stage. But if we could go down for a second, I'd love to show you some of our favorite nonprofits or some of our favorite fundraisers over the past year. And you can see a couple of these things we've illustrated. One is how to manage pre-recorded video versus live elements. And then also, you'll see it's carpool karaoke.
Okay.
My favorite thing ever. I want to do that for every event. We can do that later too. Let me know.
No, if you do want to show it, go ahead. Could you please talk to the programs or the platforms that you've used as we are seeing the video?
And that'll be a good showcase of Minicam's capabilities, because I'll show you. You can put your picture in picture in there. So hang on one second.
All right.
And I will transition over in theory and put myself on there. Yep.
And for those that are not familiar with the platform, if you want to make Alex's screen full screen, the 4 arrows that are on the top right.
Sorry. Here we go. This is my first time using the internet, guys. I will say too, just a quick tip: if you are ever running a virtual event, know that mistakes happen and it never goes flawlessly, especially live, and people expect that. They've been in enough of these over the past so long that thinking on your feet is going to be the biggest skill that you can have. So like, I was not prepared for that, but good call. And it's a better experience for the client. So I'll play a few of these and I'll just kind of walk you through them. And play along in the chat.
And while those donations are rolling in, we have a special surprise from our favorite book lady, Miss Dolly. Take a look.
This is Dolly Parton, one of my favorite events, because she is a saint.
Now, I know that you're the reason that we have touched the lives of so many children. So why don't we celebrate another year of our incredible partnership? Here's to you, your volunteers, and to your donors. And may we all continue to inspire all children to dream more, learn more, care more, and be more.
After we go to the forum. So you see, boom, Cassandra from Lunchpool has just popped up that QR code. You can either scan that QR code or look for the link in the chat room, and you will be able to participate in tonight's virtual photo booth. Because even when we're not all in the same room, we can still live united and remember this great night.
First, I would like to brag about
We don't coach
AFP
these people.
Charlotte
They just
chapter.
they come up
When
with
other
this stuff
chapters
'cause they're
opted
in it.
out of their
And so
National
this was
Philanthropy
one.
Day luncheon,
I don't know if can you
AFP
hear me
here
too
in
while I'm
Charlotte
talking over
said,
it?
you know what?
Let
Let's
adjust
keep
the
it
volume.
going. And you are seeing that live. That's right, friends. We have decided to pivot even amidst a pandemic.
Right here, I'll pause it. So this event right here is one that was really cool because this is one of the first hybrid events that we did, where there was a local newscaster they brought in, and this was a larger budget event because they had the in-person element, so they had a few people there. They were kind of created an impromptu studio, and then they shifted back and forth to the pre-recorded video. They had some bands, those kind of things can be really cool. And just to speak back to the photo booth, how does that work? And what's the benefit of that? You scan a QR code from your phone, you take a little quick picture, it puts it onto a gallery so you can see everybody there, and it's nice to pull that into the event. And then and we do these virtual, there's a bunch of photo booth solutions out there, and we sifted through all of them to find the best one. Yinka, have you done a virtual photo booth?
That's one of my top tools that I was actually going to speak about is virtual photo booth. I absolutely love doing them.
Yeah.
I think people love them. I've gotten so many people that are like, how do we take a group picture? And I'm like, well, you're not all at the same space, so you can't.
Well, you can, but you can though. Did you know that you can? What? I'll show you later. So just so you guys know, I don't have it queued up. So it's an interesting way to do it. So we have what's called buddy avatars, and so what you can do is you send the different people to take a picture of themselves, and there's like a little silhouette, and it creates essentially like a cardboard cutout, so they can choose their buddies and like place them next to each other. It's hilarious.
Wow.
I'll show you later. But yeah, it's the good thing about the photo booths is that you get an engaging element. We call it dimensionality. My favorite artwork is surrealism, and it's because it breaks down the barrier between the impossible and the real. Same thing with hybrid events, right? And I consider hybrid anything. Like if we deliver lunch and it's virtual, that's hybrid because there's real world elements. And so photo booth does that because you have to pull out your phone. It's immersive, it's interactive. So, and it gives somebody a leave behind, which to Laura's point earlier, keep them connected.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'll pause on the video. I can bring up some more later if it becomes relevant. But actually, let me show you one. I got to show you the carpool karaoke because again, that is.
You already know what it is.
Go
ahead. What does it mean to celebrate while they start the catwalk?
There we go. Found the bottom of the bottom's always dry. Actually, no, this was pre-recorded. So this is the mix. So she pre-recorded it and then played it. But when you poured out your heart, I didn't waste it. Another one. So it's just we went through all these clips and people were singing some songs about COVID, which was kind of hilarious. Good use of you're a boy, make a big noise. But anyway, yeah. So carpool karaoke, different things like that. Just be creative and do like I think you said it earlier, Laura, and I'll let you. Some tools too besides just Photoshop and Illustrator. The difference that you're going to make is how can you stand out? How can you do something that nobody else is doing?
Agreed. Laura?
Well, I mean, my main tool is floor plans. So that's how I like to stand out and create an experience. And then I was just going to say some of them, you don't always have to go get new tools, repurpose some of the other tools. One of the most well-attended, successful, most engaged events I went to was an alumni event for a mission group. It was their 20-year reunion. And they were really nervous about doing it virtually because they kept putting it off, hoping that they could meet in person. And I said, let's just do it virtually. And we did Remo. And we knew that there was already this hesitation. So we just did about a 2-week social media engagement. In event planning anyway, I like to say the party starts when the invitation goes out. So if you can start not think of just that 1 or 2 hours that you're on the platform as the event, and think about your event as being from the moment that you send out invitations until you actually have gone through. And we just started doing engaging things of being like, post pictures from this time, or plan to bring XYZ because we're going to have a scavenger hunt. And just every 2 days had something coming, and we just watched the engagement start to build, where suddenly we had 300 people, and we thought we'd maybe get 25, but we had 300 people that were now excited to come, and they came, they were on time, they stayed. We had to shut them down and chase them out because they came already psyched up for this event and had all this nostalgia that was going on and wanted to share things and create things together. So those are my tools. Maybe look back at some of your old tools and how do you repurpose them so that they work into your event. Alex is a lot better at the new bells and whistles.
Listen. No, but you're right. So if it looked like I wasn't paying attention, I wrote that down. The party starts the minute the invite goes out. Like, I don't know if you have that copyrighted or what. We'll talk about it. I need to borrow more stuff. But that's exactly it. Like, technology is a tool. It's a tool. It's not the experience, right? Like, you can go download Minicam right now, and you probably won't be able to, throw some Spider-Mans on here, like, because that's my specialty. I know how to navigate around that stuff, but you can easily build hype, by showcasing a quick image that you already have and good copy about, we're doing this. Are you ready? Because I briefly mentioned it earlier, and I think Yinka and Laura, I'd love to hear from you how attendance is going for you guys, but we've had to shift over from just production to production and marketing because our clients are like, nobody's coming to our events. And I'm like, well, we got to get you that ROI that we set up in that goal meeting. And so you got to communicate the value.
Mm-hmm. I think Yinka's going to get to this later, so I hate to, but talking
go
about
ahead.
things that don't work. I found this past year, a lot of people that I work with think all there is to a virtual event is sending out a link. And you would never do that with an in-person event or an important meeting ever. So just stepping back and saying, just because it's virtual doesn't mean that we just send out a link and expect that people will come. Mm-hmm. Also just facing the fact, again, I like to always back up. If you want people to come, the best way to get them to come is to have them help you build it. So the most important people there are going to be your board members or your major donors. If you can get a few of them on board in the beginning to at least put in their ideas and help them build it, because you don't have that sexy feeling of showing up at a gala or showing up at a 5K race. You literally have to get them excited about sitting in front of their computer. And that's going to take the people that are already connected to those people. So bring them in from the very beginning, get their input, show them the cool things that are possible, and then they have to help become your disciples to get people excited ahead of time so that they will come. And then it's not just about you producing a good event. Their energy that they've come with and built over these past, weeks or months comes with them, and it lives in your event.
And just to kind of tie in with everything you just said, Laura, about, having your big donors or those board. I did a virtual event where they actually brought me as their event, as the planner, onto their IG, their Instagram live, and we did several lives. It was myself, we had their executive director on there, and it was about 2 to 3 weeks. We did about 3 lives each week. And, I just spoke about the things that we were going to experience and, the performances that were going to be there. And they really handled the more, the parts that really connected with the audience. And we found that was an amazing way to use Instagram as a tool for the of your virtual event. Some of my favorite tools, just list them. OBS is like Open Broadcast System is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Not very, very technical. You don't want to spend months learning it. StreamYard is a really, really it's very user friendly, very easy, and it does create a higher production value you. Yep, thank you, Alex. It produces a higher, really well produced for really not that much amount of time. One of my favorite live fundraising platforms, and I love this platform because you can easily integrate it into remote. Can you go on another browser? Is Paybe. The thing I like about Paybe is that it has a silent auction portion to it and a live portion to it as well. And so I did a gala on here, and we took a moment to go into the ballroom space where the silent auction took place, and all that was the, we had messaging surrounding it. So as time was getting closer, we were saying we're going to get ready. The host, in 5 minutes when we go to the ballroom, and she really set the scene, even though we're not going to a ballroom. When that time came, we put the link in the chat. Everyone then went over, and we did have, I was here on Remo still for anyone that either stayed here or just was here. And it really had a really nice feel to it. And what we did when they came back from that silent auction portion, we flipped the floor plan on here into more of a festive nightclub scene, and people came back to a completely different floor plan, and they were just like, oh my God, what happened? And, but we really created that experience, and it really more and more money and more donations that were coming in.
Yeah. And yeah, it's exactly when chaos, there's a little bit of beauty to chaos, if you
sorry.
Go ahead.
Like we're saying, we're in a virtual space, right? I'm going to go ahead and just refresh my browser. It seems like some people are having a hard time hearing me. But Alex, please continue.
Definitely, yeah. So she mentioned, refreshing the floor plan. And if it had been Laura, I'm sure Laura would have communicated that well, because I get, you are an excellent communicator, and that's half the battle. But there's a little bit of beauty to chaos too. Sometimes I'll think of something experiential on the fly and do it, and people are like, "What just happened?" But then they get back in, they're like, "Whoa! Now I'm not in a gala anymore. I'm in a pirate ship, or whatever is on theme." That I got Laura to build for me, because she makes these amazing floor plans. So yeah, I think that the takeaway from all that is that I am often on a pirate ship. Eric, thank you. That was in the chat. The experience is everything. It's literally everything, because it's lazy, and it's kind of disrespectful to what Laura said earlier, to just send out a link and then not prep, have a Zoom call, or just throw up a video that you had the studio produce, even if it's well produced. You wouldn't do that in the real world. You wouldn't say, "Hey guys, come to our fundraiser," whatever. Even if you were like really great with the copy, and then they get there and it's like, "Okay, now watch this video. Please give us your money." It's just not the way it is. So people forget that for a year, over a year now, virtual has become, or it was a replacement for the real world. It was the only replacement. And so if you don't actually try to make it feel like the real thing, then it's not going to serve you well. So I'll sum that bit up by saying it's my favorite part of last year was seeing the transition. And I know for a fact that not all other organizations did this. I'm just proud of what my team does. Seeing the transition and people saying, "Hey guys, I know it sucks. We want to be in person, blah, 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 but at least we could do it virtually." To now, people are saying, "And how great is this? Like, we could still meet up and do a photo booth, or to some of the stuff that Yinka does." I attended one of Yinka's events, and it was it Red Cross or Heart Association?
The Heart Association.
Yes, we did a fundraiser, and I have a gift basket that my wife was very happy about. So, those kind of experiential elements, I think they go quite a long way, and you've got to incorporate, not just incorporate the real world, because it's not even a replacement; it's an extension. It's that surrealism. It's where you have the real world, and in the computer screen, anything's possible. I've seen Laura create places that I want to go to, and then I feel like I go to, because they wouldn't let me in a fancy ballroom like the one that's behind this presentation mode, but good God, I can go, in the virtual world.
I was going to say too, I think it's interesting. I see people kind of take two different paths, either fundraisers who want to absolutely recreate everything down to the T of what they do at a live event, all the same way, which has its hazards. And then people who want to do something entirely new that they've never thought of and their constituents have never experienced, which also has its hazards. So I think what you were speaking to, Alex, is one of the important things. If you think about, okay, what has worked to connect with my donors in the past? And then maybe work with somebody who has done some live events, or think about some virtual events and think about what of those elements is going to work best in the virtual world. And what are some of the new opportunities that we have that are actually going to make this better than our past events? And if you can get to that point, to me, that's like nirvana, to figure out where is, what are the best of both worlds. So rather than insisting that you or your group or your event planner do it exactly like you did it live, because 4 hours of speeches probably wasn't working that great in a live event in the first place, but it definitely will not work in a virtual event. But doing something,
bring food.
Exactly. Doing something completely new can also throw your donors too. It might be exciting, and there is that novelty factor. So finding that beautiful place where you've got some familiar and some of those things that you knew were working, and then layer on that some of that new stuff.
Yeah. I do, Alex, you mentioned that gift basket, and I just want to talk about that just
You can't have it back. You can't have it back. It's already used.
I guess you like it.
My daughter spilled the bath salts all over the bathroom, so that's
okay. I don't need it back. It's yours. You put your money in that. That is yours. I just want to say with that though, if any of you out there are listening to what we're saying, and if budget is an issue, things like doing that gift basket is great and very, very low cost. We did that as a silent auction. We had messaging that went out with the pictures of what you could win, and anything that was left over from the silent auction that didn't go, we actually brought it into this presentation mode and did a live auction, which, remember that, Alex? The chat was on fire.
It was on fire. It was blowing up.
Like more than I didn't even know that was going to happen.
It was like a Lunchpool event. No.
It was on fire. And that was just quick thinking on my part when we had one basket left. Like, let's throw it in and do a live auction. But you can figure out low cost ways of really engaging your attendees and getting donations. So you don't have to go to a different platform. You can stay and just be a little bit creative. And now Alex has that basket, and he'll always remember Yinka and the American Heart Association fundraiser when he sees that basket.
Yeah, and to the connection point, it was another point where I thought about the organization and Yinka, because she was, lively emceeing the whole thing, and it was engaging. Like, it made me remember, and that's the connection that you're wanting to build. So I think that that was a great event too. It was a lot. That was a good event. Was that the one? I've been to a few. Was that the one with the keyboard player? Oh man, we were making requests. So that's another experience element that you can use.
And we were doing requests with donations as well. So you put in a request, you put in a donation amount, and he got to your song and sang it, and it just kept going. And that is, once again, very, very, very low cost way of raising some dollars.
Did you just do that through the chat, or did you have a link for that?
It was just through the chat, yeah. And this guy was, I'm not gonna say he was great, but he was very entertaining, is what I'll say.
Yes, and Eric. Maybe back on the piano.
Yeah. Eric was actually there, and it's Eric's like my right hand man, and he I was like, Eric, stop, because he put Baby Got Back on there, and the guy played it, but it was awesome. Everybody's dressed up. This is a gala type of experience. I don't know, Lauren, if that was your floor plan, but like red carpet, this kind of feel. And there's this keyboard player playing Baby Got Back and Van Halen and all these different things, and it was awesome. And that's what inspires people to give, is giving them those experiences and those feelings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, so we're nearing the end. We're approaching the end. If there are any of the attendees out there, if you have any questions, maybe you are thinking about hosting your own virtual, or your organization is, please let us know. If you have a question, we'll be more than happy to answer them for you. We have spoken a lot about the good. We've spoken a lot about the good. Let's talk about some of the bad, because that happens too. It does. It happens, right? So we have to address it. So we've talked a lot about what works in this virtual space. I am sure we all have examples of what does not work. So let's talk about that. What are some let's not name names, but what are some either virtual fundraisers you have either gone to or planned or been a part of that just did not work, or there were certain aspects of it that just did not do what it was supposed to do?
We've done 300 events, so as you can imagine, there's been, actually, I think it's only like 2.
I forgot the second part to my question.
Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
For your examples, if you could please also have some, just let us know either what you would have done differently or just the solution.
Gotcha. No, that's good. I wasn't going to go that. I was just going to riff on my customers.
I know, that's why.
Some of the names have been changed to protect the innocent. But basically, so the one that comes to mind for me is that we have only given, or we've only been asked really for it, but we've only given a refund one time. And that customer was, it was in Texas. That's all I'll say. Eric's in Texas, so he knows how those Texans can be sometimes. But they insisted against our advice. Like, I was just basically like, you don't even need, if that's the plan that you want to go, you need to pick virtual or in person, because they wanted to do a hybrid experience and have, they usually had at a country club, they had, a bunch of tables. It was an in-person experience. They loved it. They wanted to preserve that, but in smaller groups back when that was kind of the restriction. And so they wanted to have a broadcast stage where they filmed it. The people are in person, they're there. And then you have it was Remo as well, the Remo experience. And then they wanted to have a way for those people to interact. And like, times have changed. We can do that now. We actually have a meeting owl, which is an experimental thing we're working on. But we didn't have that back then. I told her, but she insists. I was like, this is a lot of money for what you're doing, and you should just either have it one or the other. Because basically what you're doing is having a broadcast, and you don't need Remo for that. You use Zoom if that's the way you want to go. They did it. I think, I don't remember. They had paid for support and the experience up to like 400 people. 26 people came. 26. And so I was like, and I can only advise on how to market it and how to structure it so much. So I guess that's tip one is I would, if I could do it over again, I would have just said, no, I can't do this. And from her side, from the client side, if you're an organizer, if you're organizing a fundraiser, trust the professionals, right? Because I think I advised her against it, and the production studio that she set us up with, he was like, I don't think this is a good idea. And I was like, I don't either. And we were like, hey, this isn't a good idea. And she's like, no, this is what we're doing. Like, okay. And then I gave her money back because, that's what kind of people we are. But you've got to trust the people that know what they're doing, like Yinka, like Laura, like us, obviously. But just if you're going to use professionals, like, you're paying them, listen to them.
I was going to say, and I've sorry, Yinka, did you want to say something?
Nope, I was going to say Laura.
I feel like I've said a lot of the things that could go wrong or that you shouldn't do all along. So I'm like looking at my list. I'm like, oh, I already talked about that, but I'm going to build on Alex because it's my last one. Just get comfortable with your capabilities too. If you're doing your first event and you're not hiring somebody, or even if you are, you don't have to do all the bells and whistles. You can grow into it. There are a lot of things you can do with simple tools, because I've seen a few clients crash and burn when they want to do all the things and they've got a short timeline and they've never done this before, and it's one of their most important clients. And, and we can support them, we can help them, we can say, try and say, pull back. But in the end, it is their, their final decision. So I get a little intimidated sometimes when I come up next to Alex, because he's got all the toys and he's got this fantastic production team, and he was working on stuff like this far beyond, way before the rest of us were. And I have to all things. And I have to say, not everybody needs that for their goals. Not everybody wants that for their goals. And it's okay if you do something smaller. Sometimes that makes more sense. I know Alex is going to love me for saying that. Just get comfortable with your limitations, the size of your team, your budget. There are things that you can do. And then once you've done a good, successful one, add on some of those toys and those bells and those whistles and make it better. It's okay to do it that way. Nailed it.
That is, yes, I love playing with toys. Yes, I love building those full fleshed out experiences. But if it's not right for the client, I don't want to do that. And it's if you're planning to raise $15,000 from your fundraiser, that's awesome. Like, raise that. Do not hire someone that's going to cost $10,000. That's not a great ROI. When you could just, maybe you just have a Zoom call, right? We call it the Z word, but you can engage people with some of these, techniques and things that we've talked about via Zoom. It's just being thoughtful and being respectful of your attendees and just being mindful. What do they want to get out of it? What's in it for them? We always joke around. That's everybody's favorite radio station is WIIFM. It's what's in it for me? You got to tune into that. So I'll show you one example too. This is not really something that went wrong, but it's to that point where this was a very simple way, an elegant way to pull off a recreation of the in-person event. So they could have just gone with a standard floor plan. Granted, this is not one of Laura's. I actually made this. This was early when we didn't even have a designer, so don't judge me on the design, Laura. But I downloaded a stock vector flowers bouquet, but that was really, really important. This is a United Way Women United event, and they always have this. And our contact said, we'll pay extra. Can you? This is when we first got into the floor plans. Can you do a bouquet in the middle of the table? Very important. We have that at every single event. So it's that one tiny little thing. I went to Shutterstock.com or whatever, threw it in there, and that's what people were raving about. They were like, "How did you get the flowers? This, this is the best thing ever." So very simple, but very effective.
Good job, Alex, on the floor plan.
Yeah, don't hate on that. My wife is a designer. I'm not. They liked it. They were happy. They did.
So. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be over the top. It's often the small, simple things that are specific to your organization that are
now we trust the professionals. So we hire Gatherkin, and we don't just leave it to my fumble hands.
We'll leave you with the toys, Alex.
So I think we all hit on my next question, but I do want to just delve a little bit deeper, because to me, free 99 is always better, right? So social media, one of the best free ways to advertise. What are some of the ways that you all have seen nonprofits when it comes to this virtual fundraising space? What are some of the most either creative or just interesting ways that you have seen nonprofits use social media, whether it is the the promotion and marketing portion of it, or the actual live virtual fundraiser?
This is completely self-serving, but
yes, go ahead.
I loved it when one organization, they couldn't decide on what floor plans, so they let their constituents vote. So they put 3 of the floor plans up, and there was a 4-day vote.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
There were people that were like, "No, we want the day spa. No, we want the nightclub," and they were going in and cheating the system just to be able to push the vote ahead. But all of a sudden they were engaged, and everybody felt like they had buy into the event, and they knew where they were coming, and they had decided. So That's a
That's
small.
great. That's a good
That's
one,
awesome.
Laura.
I've
Yeah.
never seen that, but I
I've
love
never
that.
seen. Yeah, that's a great one.
I'm going to give you guys a tip, not just for fundraisers, but for a fundamental shift in human behavior that you can use for fundraisers. It's if you want to get engagement on social media, it's again the WIIFM, but it's changed, right? People used to, like, you remember BuzzFeed where it used to be like 10 simple ways to da 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 da. Again, with what I talked about earlier, the over commercialization, people don't trust that anymore. People do not want you to give them advice. What people want is to give you advice. And so, to your point, Laura, saying, hey, which floor plan should we use? Everybody's got an opinion. Whether they trust you or not, they trust themselves, and they will engage in that way. And so, some of the things that I've seen work really well are, I think you talked about it right at the very beginning, Laura, is like co-creation of value, right? You don't have to spend all your time and energy planning this event and trying to rack your brain about what do people want, what will they find engaging. Just ask them. Like, just literally while you're planning it, say, what do you guys think of a virtual photo booth? This is what it looks like. And that is going to hype them up because you hired Lunchpool and you see our photo booth experience in there and they're like, what? No, but just kidding. But if they're like, that sounds dumb, it's like, okay, never mind, Lunchpool, you're fired. Yeah, forget that. I'm not going to spend that money. And so that, and then Yinka, something you said earlier, where it's, if you're the best fundraiser in the world, you're great at going to doors and building connections and all that, but you are terrified on the stage, do not get on the stage because it's a virtual stage, right? And so Yinka, very comfortable with it. I'm very comfortable with it. Laura, obviously, we're all very comfortable with it. And I wouldn't even consider myself, like, I've emceed events, but I'm not the best one. Like, I've seen Yinka do it. She's a pro. And so for social media specifically, what you talked about earlier with the like that Instagram takeover, let your MC take over your Instagram and let her show you. Say, like, guys, I'm Yinka. I know you don't know me. I have purple hair. I'm beautiful. Look at me. Because not to be sexist, but, like, if you can get a pretty girl on there, it's usually very, very effective, and at least a human face, because people just see a face and they react to it. But the point is, you've got to get their attention because they're scrolling through their feed, and then get someone engaging, like Yinka, like Laura, like a broadcaster. We've had lots of broadcasters host because they know that's what they do. And so getting them on Instagram, especially if it's a familiar face, that's effective. And then Yinka's like, check out this floor plan. What are we using the floor plan for? Well, let me tell you. And then, you've got their attention and they're seeing the possibility of it. They're comparing that to, I'm in another Zoom call on the other monitor and I'm watching this on my phone, and good God, I want to be there. So I think it's getting people to the event, and people that do it well, they're the ones raising the most money right now.
Mm-hmm. And you can use social media during the live portion of the event as well. I mean, you can do things like a dance off and have people, and get a hashtag and have people do the dance off and throw it on their social, and whatever it is that your hashtag is for that night. And that's, an immediate, that's basically as in real time as you can get in this virtual world. So you can be creative with those free social media platforms that are out there. We have about 10 minutes left, and I do want to give people the time to come talk to us one-on-one if they have any questions about what we've done. If they just want to talk about if they have a virtual event coming up and maybe you want to workshop it with us a little bit, please feel free. So Alex, Laura, thank you so much for joining me on this virtual stage. We're going to head back into the gala floor plan. We'll be there for about another 10 minutes or so. Come find us. We love to talk if you didn't realize that.
Yeah, we're talkers, so we'll talk to you all day long. Thanks, guys. Thanks for hearing us. Oh, wait. One takeaway. So I like to go around, talk some more. Laura, what's your one takeaway for people?
My takeaway for people,
put you on the spot. Sorry.
Remember who this is for.
Yeah.
Remember who this is for and get them involved from the beginning.
Yeah. That's exactly it. To realize that money is fungible. My wife had to teach me that word. She's a professor, so I just learned what that is. But it means that you can move it around. It's a tool. The goal of this fundraiser, strategically, may be to raise $60,000, but the goal, the objective, for ending child hunger or bringing books to kids. So like, don't forget that. So that's my takeaway too, is don't forget what it's for.
Well, I'm a planner, and I think I said I'm all about production value and what actually, I know Laura says, know your attendees. Mine is when they are here, give them a good event, produce something great for them. So my takeaway is that there are tools out there that are low cost tools to really give you a really great high production value. You might have to research them. Actually, probably now. No, you don't, because there's so many top 10 virtual tools and there's so many lists out there that it's easily found, but definitely think about that. Put that as a budget line item when you are, going through your budget, because it really does help in creating that great attendee experience.
Awesome. What a great note to end on. Yeah, it's a noisy world. You gotta bring in the heat.
Yep. All right. So we're gonna head back on over. We'll be there for a couple more minutes. Please come find us, ask us questions. We'll see you on the flip side.
Bye, guys.
Bye.